What's going on, guys? We have made it. It is Major League Baseball opening night eve. You see it by the title. You see it by my background and Hayden's background. We've made it, guys. We are less than 16 hours from opening day, first pitch for the first couple of games at 1. We got games all the way through the evening. Some teams are back on the grind Friday. Some take the day off, and you get to watch the rest of the league while you guys come back on Saturday. It is full swing baseball. Hayden and I have successfully gotten you guys through this all-star, or excuse me, this offseason. I don't know why I said all-star, but yeah, man, it's great to finally be here. We're gonna all talk about the matchups with you guys. We'll preview everything for tomorrow. We're also gonna talk about some of the things that we didn't get a chance to discuss during our preview and recap shows during the month of March. Stuff like the Jerkson Profar contract, the Manny Machado extension, some of the training camp battles like Trey Mancini and Eric Hosmer, the James Outman, Jason Hayward type. Uh, you know, we got a couple comments. I'll get to that in a second. But those are the type of things we're going to talk about tonight, guys. And yeah, we can't wait to dive into some baseball, man. We were like half a day away. Hayden, how you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. No major complaints with me at the moment. Super excited. Baseball is back into the swing of things for the next it's like 183 something days around those lines. So I'm gonna be
Yeah.
occupied for the most part until early November. So that's keeps me through most of my year, which is great. Super happy baseball's back. Obviously no complaints when it comes to that. The off season certainly did fly by. No COVID or lockdowns or lockouts, whatever it's called, or any of
Free
those
agency was buzzing.
foolish shenanigans. So super pumped that stated baseball is back, and otherwise that's really all I got.
Yeah, man. I feel like, I mean, we've said it a bunch of times, but I mean, I think that the point still rings true that the free agency, the winter meetings, like just the little things to have back this offseason really made a huge difference. I mean, not only that, I mean, you and I had to kind of take up other sports to follow, and that helped us along our journey. But I think this offseason definitely flew by a lot faster than last one. I don't think it's even still hit me yet that the Braves play tomorrow afternoon. That's how excited I am. But yeah, dude, I guess we'll dive into a couple of our original topics that we had planned. I guess we'll start with the Manny Machado one because it's like the furthest one out. Again, guys, we did kind of cover it in our NL West recap and offseason, preview shows, but didn't get a chance to dive into it as much labor wise. So we'll talk about the details here. I think Hayden, it was like 11 years, 350 million, or yeah, something along those lines. So the
Yeah.
dude's going to end up getting 16 years, including the 4 or 5 that he's currently playing on. He had a 10-year 300. He's going to opt out after the 5 to then kick into another 11-year 350. Dude's going to be walking out with 16 years of $500 million from the San Diego Padres. That is crazy for a great player, but just the price tag alone, like crap. I want to make 500 million over a decade and a half hitting a ball. What about you?
Yeah, Manny Machado. Obviously, there was talk that he was going to opt out of his deal, and obviously that did not happen. The Padres extended him, and he's going to be a San Diego Padre most likely for the rest of his career, and most likely for the rest of his baseball career. So that's definitely a good move. Manny Machado is it's definitely worth quite a lot. I think he's a very valuable player. Arguably, will be in the MVP competition for the next couple of years. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if he takes home the MVP and many other awards throughout the rest of his career. But yeah, I mean, Manny Machado, one of the best players in baseball. I mean, he really does it all, and I definitely think his value is appropriate for what the Padres got him for. They signed him going into 2018, and obviously that was one of the biggest MLB contracts that we saw back then, and that kind of led up to a lot of other contracts like Harper, Lindor, and everyone else in the gang. So yeah, I mean, super happy for Manny Machado. Obviously, if you're a Padres fan, that's great news. This is a team that has plenty of extensions, plenty of guys locked up long term, and how do they get all this money? But Padres are getting it done. So yeah.
I guess since another topic is Fernando is supposed to come back towards the end of April. Um, I, I'm not sure if he's allowed to rehab and be ready for the call up the day he's able to be reinstated. So I'll be interested to see if he's able to play in AAA El Paso for a couple weeks just to be ready, so he's hot and his bat's ready to go for the day he's able to get reinstated. But I guess a follow up question for you is, with the overabundance, that the Padres have at the middle infield position, including, Manny Machado at third. They have the all-star Jake Cronenworth at second. They just paid Xander all this money to play shortstop for them. Apparently they're going to kick out, Soto to left and have Fernando on right. Do you think this will work for San Diego, having a guy like Trent Grisham up the middle in center field, having a guy like Ostanola who's pretty good defensively behind the plate? Or do you think you might see a little bit of scuffling with all the different roles that are going to be in constant motion this year in Slam Diego?
Yeah, I mean, the Padres are definitely going to have quite a lot of work to do defensively. I mean, I think we've seen Tatis most likely is going to be playing the outfield. Obviously, Alexander Bogaerts is going to be taking over Tatis's spot. And, I mean, I think as of right now, it's just probably the best role for the Padres. And, you can make the argument, and Tatis comes back, he takes over shortstop. But, last I checked, you have Alexander Bogaerts for quite some time now. So it's, what are you going to do with Bogaerts? Third base, unfortunately, is occupied. Maybe there's some world where you put him at second, but I don't really think they're going to want to just continue to shuffle everyone out of their positions. We've seen ball clubs who put guys out of positions, and it doesn't work. So, likely you're going to see Tatis in right field, and so far that's been a disaster. We've seen with, the injury risk with him that it's probably not going to be the best idea that he plays center. I think he has the athleticism. I think he has the range. He has the mobility. He has the eye coordination, the leg coordination, of course, to play right field. But I just think defensively as a whole, he's very sloppy out there. And, that could be. It's a new position. I mean, try being an MLB player. And, what is Tatis, 23, 24? And now they're throwing him in a new position. Last I checked, his whole life, he was a shortstop or infielder. And now you throw him into an outfielder, yeah, of course you're going to look sloppy. So there's plenty of improvements for Tatis, in spring training down the line and working with head coaches in the next couple years. So I wouldn't really worry with Tatis so much in right field. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this Padres lineup right now, and I don't think it's going to be like crazy eye-soaring defensive team. I think they're definitely going to, I mean, listen, they're not going to be like the Phillies defensively, of course. Trent Grisham, not the best guy if you want to put in the outfield. I believe he was with, correct me if I'm wrong, it was Trent Grisham in the 2019 wild card that screwed the Brewers. Yeah, Brewers fans are sure would
They're
love to
all
get a hold
teammates
of them.
now. Hader, Soto, Grissom, they're all teammates. So it's fun.
Yeah, it is. So that little duo there. Defensively, yeah, Grisham has decent rankings defensively. He has the speed. He has the OAA. Obviously, the 99th percentile in OAA, 57th percentile in arm strength. I don't really care about the arm strength. I just care about his ability to make the routine plays. So listen, if he's making the routine plays, great. Is he going to be able to go out and make these Gold Glove caliber catches? Well, we'll see. I think a guy like Nimmo is much better defensively than Trent Grisham or, Tatis in right field, of course. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a team that has a little bit of a congestion issue. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because injuries occur, doubleheaders occur, and you need depth. But, when it comes to the point is when you're taking your star shortstop and putting him in right field because you have like three other guys who could play shortstop, that gets a little worrisome. But as of right now, I think the Padres are nothing really to worry about. I think offensively they make up for it. Pitching-wise, they make up for it. I think they're a team that could arguably be World. I mean, I think the Padres are in the same talk for being World Series or bust. Everyone says the Mets are that. I think the Padres are that too. They spend money. I mean, they've been spending more money than the Mets. And, they're giving out all these long-term contracts, $375 million, $400 million, $320 million. So, no one's saying, well, Padres, World Series or bust. I think that applies for the Padres. I really do. I think there's a possibility they may be in first place in the NL West. So, Padre fans, buckle up. You're in for a season.
I guess a follow-up to that, as you said, they're bringing out all these contracts. Do you think the Xander Bogaerts signing, knowing that they had Fernando out for at least another chunk of the season, do you think it was originally like, okay, we add a guy for this year along with Machado, and if we lose Machado, bam, Fernando and Xander are good to go?
And then that's what it was. And then, you sign him in a week later, you get Machado back. So it's like, bruh. So I don't know.
I wonder if they have enough money to still fork out a Soto and Snell extension. If they do, like, oh my God. Like, they still have a little bit of a farm system down there, too. So, It's crazy. I mean, I know the Dodgers beat him out in the division by like 24 plus games last year, but I mean, we talked about it here. I mean, San Diego got him when it mattered. San Diego, honestly, the best thing to happen for San Diego making that playoff run is it cut down the extension, or I'm sorry, cut down the suspension game limit on Fernando. It took, an extra 10 games off his suspension time and made it to where he's able to come back 2 weeks earlier. That's a big difference in Major League Baseball. So, um, we'll be interested to see how he is in AAA before he gets called up, how he's going to handle things because I don't know. I think a guy like Nelson Cruz in the room is definitely going to be a big help for him, like we've discussed before. So, I guess my follow up to that, you mentioned bad Phillies defense that did end up of those Brandon Marsh to solidify it last. They also picked up Martinez's top prospect. They got DFA'd in exchange. I forget who. I'll pull it up when you. The Phillies are Pache trying to make sure that they have extra seasons. A bad thing for them to have. Don't know if he's going to be I don't know if he's going to end up being a major contributor to them offensively because I mean the dude just hasn't hit at all in his professional career, but a guy that will be able to do a one thing that the Phillies need greatly, and that's a little bit of defensive stability, a little bit of base stealing with all the big boppers in their lineup. What was your initial takeaway? Because you and I talked about it earlier. You said great signing, but what's your in-depth analysis of Pache maybe being that last roster spot for Philadelphia?
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, offensively, he hasn't really been contributing a whole lot since being at the MLB level. Um, I think it's just a nice depth thing for the Philadelphia Phillies. Why did the Athletics give him up? That's a great question. Why do the Athletics do a lot of things that they do? But right now, I think it's just a nice move for them. He's an outfielder. Obviously, you don't have Harper for half the season, so that makes up for it. If there's a part where a guy like Brandon Marsh isn't really doing a whole lot, you could slot in a guy like Christian Pache. Both of them are kind of weak offensively, but at least Pache has the upper hand and he has the ability to get better. Where Marsh, I think the Phillies kind of know what they're going to get out of him. He's 24 years old, so short-term deal, obviously. Dombrowski making the moves. Yeah, I mean, overall, I think it was a pretty fair signing. Not really much to say on it. Probably be a backup outfielder. So I think it was a nice move.
I'm looking at Matt Gelb's report, the athletic beat reporter for the Philadelphia Phillies. He had the initial breaking news said the Phillies have traded for Christian Pache. In exchange, they are sending over righty relief prospect Billy Sullivan. Pache is out of options, so he'll begin the season on the roster. They moved Rhys Hoskins, of course, to the 60-day IL, so hope that he gets healthy and that he bounces back. I don't know. Maybe Hoskins played his last game in a Philadelphia Phillies uniform last November at this pace. That would be very disappointing for him if that's the case. But it looks like he is slotted to take Dalton Guthrie's opening day spot on the Philadelphia Phillies roster, which could be very interesting. The exact detail is, of course, Sullivan for Pache. I mean, as a Braves fan, he was once our top prospect, and he was just one of them that never really panned out. And it's not that he didn't have opportunities because of guys blocking him. It's just that he, as you said, never was able to hit at a major league level. He's got killer speed. He's got a great glove. He has the potential to be an Andrew Jones type of outfielder, but you got to hit the ball to get on base, and that's something that he hasn't been able to do. You got to make contact. He was never able to do that, so he really just turned into, I mean, down the playoff run for us, he was a fourth outfielder, base stealer. I mean, he was anything but a starting center fielder. So I'm sure that's what his role will be with Philly, as you mentioned. They got Brandon Marsh, they got Schwarber and Castellanos, of course. Harper will be back middle of the year. So then you add a guy like Pache, you could probably start 1 or 2 games a week if necessary in the 8 or 9 hole, along with some base stealing opportunities with how the rules are this year, and some ninth inning defense if they're only up one. So I mean, it's an interesting move. Of course, I'll always be rooting for him, but I don't know. The Phillies taking a flyer gives me a couple questions. That's sure. Another piece of news that we didn't get a chance to cover during our month of March shows was Jurickson Profar found a home, and that is with the Colorado Rockies. And it begs me to question, why would the dude wait to sign somewhere so long? Uh, Wait till the WBC was over, and then just decide to pack your bags for Colorado, debatably the worst team in the National League. What was the stop process, Hayden?
Yeah, being completely honest, I was kind of shocked that Jurickson Profar would want to go to a dumpster fire of a franchise. Exactly why, I don't know. I mean, there were talks of teams like the Mets going after him. There were talks of teams like the Dodgers. You had these elite market teams going out there. He's 30 years old. He's in his prime age. Um, and he went to a 1-year deal with the Rockies. Possibility that even gets traded at the trade deadline. I'm not really sure why he did that. I don't know if it's to boost his stats offensively. I mean, I think everyone knows, to take the Colorado stats with a grain of salt. Last year, he didn't put up any crazy stats. He had 15 home runs. Otherwise, mediocre average, mediocre OBP, fair OPS, nothing too crazy, like I said. So, yeah, I wasn't really sure why he decided to go out to Colorado. I think that was kind of a boneheaded decision. So, yeah, I mean, there's really not much to say on this. It's really a move that's not going to have a whole lot. Yeah, there's really not much to say with this.
See, I was under the impression that he would end up a Miami Marlin at some point, a guy that was holding out. The Marlins always need a little bit of extra offense. And for some reason, they like guys that have the name starting with J. So I thought it made a lot of sense for both parties. But yeah, man, he was like one of the top remaining free agents for what, a month? Once the free agency period died down. And guys like him and Gary Sanchez just kind of waited out there for, as Randy says, a 1 year, $7.75 million deal. Which, yeah, I guess in the Rockies' perspective, they're hoping he has a little bit of the Coors effect, and they are able to trade him in August for something. But I don't know why he waited out this long, whether it's for injuries, waiting for someone to get hurt, whether he wasn't the monetary money value he wanted, the right teams were calling him, and then after all that, you sign a 1-year flyer with Colorado? I'm sure Chris Bryant's happy, but that's about the only person that can be. So, yeah, as you said, there's not a lot more to unpack there. I just thought after waiting for him to sign so long, guys it was basically what? Bauer went to Japan like we thought. We'll maybe talk about that in a minute because we never really got to go in depth. Bauer went to Japan like we suspected. Yuli Gurriel signed with Miami like we suspected. Gary Sanchez is still out there. Maybe he'll find a home if there's a catcher that gets hurt or some team is in a bad need for a DH. We really thought that he'd be the last splash in the month of March. And we looked at the World Baseball Classic rosters, you and I, and we're like, well, we'll see if he goes off for Team Netherlands in the couple games he played. He did. And that did land him a roster. It landed him a contract. But with the Rockies, yeah, it was a turn that I did not expect at the very end of the sweepstakes. But we'll have to see how the summer goes for him. Getting into some camp battles now. I think the first one we'll mention. The Cubs have a little first base platoon that could actually work out very nicely for them. They signed both Eric Hosmer and Trey Mancini on short prove-it-year deals. And both of them have pretty good. Both of them have pretty good springs from what I'm hearing. Of course, they're both going to make the roster. But Hayden, what was your first initial reaction when they made both these moves, and how do you think it'll pan out based on the springs they've had for the Cubs this summer?
Yeah, obviously, I mean, Chicago Cubs, the last time they had somewhat of a dominant presence was just a couple years ago in Anthony Rizzo. And obviously, you went out, you signed Eric Hosmer, you signed Trey Mancini as well. And, everyone kind of had the mindset, they platoon, one could DH, one's a lefty, one's a righty. So that kind of always can come in hand. Obviously Mancini did not have a good second half last year. Had a good spring training, decent spring training, so that's always enjoyable to see. You look at Trey Mancini, he's 31. You look at Hosmer, he's 33. Both of these guys aren't anything crazy defensively. Hosmer used to be good defensively in his old Kansas City days and, really early Padres days, but just defensively is on the decline. Offensively, he's obviously going down. His ground ball rate is only going up. Um, yeah, I mean, overall, he's just really not slowly getting worse. Where Mancini, it's 2 years to his junior, so maybe you give him the advantage of that. He definitely, he was out of baseball for a year. He had cancer, unfortunately, and came back into it, which is phenomenal to see. Um, you know, I'm looking at a lot of these guys' rankings and a lot of their statistics, and you know, they're kind of identical. Both of these guys, really didn't play above average last year in many categories. Mancini a 710 OPS, Hosmer a 716 OPS. When it came to slugging, 391 for Mancini, 382 for Hosmer. So I mean, power wise, they're not really doing much. Mancini had 18 home runs, Hosmer had 8. So if it comes to maybe power and just hitting the ball hard, yeah, I'd probably give it to Mancini because I think I think he has a better build. He's a righty. Where Hosmer, I think, is just more of this contact-oriented player. But as of right now, if I'm the Cubs GM and I have to say, Hayden, who are you putting out there for first base for opening day? I honestly would put Mancini. I think defensively he's better. I think he's more versatile. I just think he would give you more production than Hosmer. I really do feel that Hosmer's on the decline. I think a big part of his time in Chicago is simply just going to be helping the veteran, helping the young guys, the rookies out, having that somewhat veteran presence. And hey, it's call him a veteran, but he's 33, it's mid age, but he's been in the league for so long now. He's been in the league since 2014, 2015. So we're almost at the 10-year mark where not many guys, you found, take a time machine in 2014, 2015. Not many guys that are in the league are still there. You only have a couple names. Trout, I think that was his first year, second year, just about. So you really don't have many guys that are in that name. So, I like Hosmer for the veteran presence, the coaching mentality. But when it comes to the athleticism overall, I think I really do like Mancini. I think he hits the ball harder. He'll give you more barrels. But if I want more contact, taking walks, taking pitches, I'd go Hosmer. But overall, I'm going Trey Mancini.
Ultimately, I feel like they both are such great fits. Sorry, my mic had to be adjusted. Both are such great fits with the Chicago Cubs. I also think Rizzo's a really good fit with the New York Yankees at his age. So I think both parties can end up having great wins. But I think you summed it up beautifully there. So I don't think there's really much from. I know we eventually want to get into opening day talk, so I'll let you be the lone point on that one. But I do want to bring up one more point in Cubs news that was this week, along with Cleveland news. Star shortstops Nico Horner and Andres Jimenez got their bags this week. What was your official thought process that went into, when you saw the news? I can't really think straight tonight.
Yeah, so obviously Nico Horner, I believe, was extended first. The second baseman for the Chicago Cubs signed a 3-year contract extension worth $35 million, which covers all the way to 2026. So, yeah, I think this was a pretty good move for the Chicago Cubs. Nico Horner, I think the best way to describe Cubs player is him. He's a young guy who a lot of players look up to. Taking a little look-see at some of his metrics and stats last year, he had a decent season, posted a 281 average. The OBP was a little low at 327, 737 OPS, maybe a little improvement. 10 home runs, nothing too horrible. I definitely think he could need a little bit more playing time. I think that could definitely help him out a little bit. Played 135 games, so kind of saw a decent sample size. But I think, if you put him in the lineup a little bit more, I think he'll definitely have more time to get adjusted and kind of just find out what type of hitter and what type of ball player he wants to be. He's 25 years old, so like I said, a 3-year deal. See where he's at then. That's great. Defensively, he's phenomenal. He's a menace. He has a ton of athleticism when it comes to the infield. He's a speedy guy, 92nd percentile in sprint speed. So it's very fast, very mobile. He knows what he's doing. He's going to make the plays that need to be done. Comes to his approach offensively, nice righty bat. Like I said, 10 home runs last year. So, the power is there. I feel like the power really does have potential to hit. Like I said, I really feel he has the potential to hit. He's not really he's not really a power hitter, but that can come into work. So yeah, I think this was a good move for the Cubs. I mean, right now they're kind of trying to build their core for the future, and the Cubs really, I mean, they didn't even really have a rebuild. They just got a whole group of players and are in the competition of contending. So I think looking at some type of infield of Nico Horner and Dansby Swanson and Trey Mancini and Nick Madrigal and Hosmer, it's not a horrible infield. So I think it was a great move for the Cubs. To extend him. Kind of caught me off a surprise. Kind of caught me off a surprise. So that was a great move. And then nextly comes Andres Jimenez, a guy who I know very, very well. Was able to reach an extension with the Cleveland Guardians on a 7-year, $106.5 million deal that goes all the way to 2031. We know that the New York Mets traded away Andres Jimenez and a couple other guys, including Amed Rosario and two prospects in that mega Lindor Carrasco trade, January of 2021, I believe. And, Jimenez has been doing great in Cleveland so far. I think right now, I mean, you want me to sum up the trade? I think it's been a win-win. The Guardians get an elite second baseman, the Mets get an elite shortstop.
You want win-win trades too. That's ultimately always the goal.
Yeah, and I mean, the good thing about Jimenez is, put him at short, you can put him at second, he can kind of really play anywhere in the infield besides first. Obviously the Mets have a second baseman, Jeff McNeil, who, in my opinion, is much better than Andres Jimenez. And I think many baseball fans would agree that McNeil is one of the best second basemen in the league, arguably top 2, top 3. Jimenez is definitely a top 5, no doubt. Jimenez put up a great season last year, great spring training too. High on base percentage, 371, average 297, OPS 837, 17 bombs. He was an all-star. So he really, really broke out last year. We saw that sample size when he was with the Mets organization in 2020 that, he looked like he had the potential. He was slick. He was clean. He was athletic. His potential was there. 2021, mid-season, nothing too horrible. But last year was the year where it was the year Jimenez. Like I said, he's fast. He's great defensively. Offensively, like I said, I don't think he's this crazy power hitter. He's a lefty, so a lot of his home runs are only going to right field. So it's not like he has like insane Alonso or Judge Power where he's hitting them the opposite way. But yeah, I think he'll definitely do great things with the Cleveland Guardians for years to come. So I'm happy that both of these extensions happened.
To speak on the Nico Horner thing, like if the Cubs end up paying Nico but not Ian Happ this year, especially if Bellinger goes off, man, I'm going to feel bad because Ian Happ is one of my favorite players in baseball. I love Nico Horner too, don't get me wrong, but it would feel, I guess not to twist the subject away from Nico, but to relate it back to the Ricketts in the Cubs front office, it would feel like it's redundant for them to continually be retooling players when you're already buying back in. You let Wilson walk, you let Rizzo, Baez, and Bryant go all via trades. Kyle Hendricks is probably, a year or two left from retiring along with your bullpen pieces. It would make no sense to me to re-up a guy like Bellinger. If he has a good year, that's a big if, but if he does, along with already extending Nico, paying for guys like Hosmer and Mancini and Dansby, and then letting Ian Happ go via trade or, come next November, I will be very confused. So I do hope that Ian Happ ends up staying in Wrigleyville as well because he is meant to be a Chicago Cub. I think he might be the king of that clubhouse this year, that's for sure. And then relating it back to the Andres Jimenez signing, I love it. Like, I'm interested to see what type of sophomore slump he has this year. If he does at all, I know he's had a little bit more time than 1 year, but last year was more of his first season as a full major league starter, and he was everything of what was expected. He was an all-star, got Cleveland into the playoffs, had some big moments there throughout the season, and Stephen Kwan, and a lot of the young guys like Naylor went, and Cleveland has to have that even more if they want to have the same success this season. So that brings up our next topic, which goes back to injury, kind of keeping it with Cleveland. And then I'll relate it back to your Mets even. Is there any, well, first of all, I'll ask you this before I ask the Tristan McKenzie news. Is there any update on the timetable guy, Brandon Nimmo?
Yeah, he's back in the lineup. Yeah, no, Nimmo's back in the lineup. He played 2 spring training games on Saturday and Sunday, or whatever the last 2 games were. Yeah, last week he slid into second base and kind of screwed up his leg or something. I don't know what it was. He slid into second base and like he rolled
Knee
over his
and ankle.
ankle and did something and kind of hurt. So they took him out as a precautionary thing. And he was day to day for a couple of games and came back Saturday, played Sunday. He looked great. He had a triple. Played some minor league games and yeah, he's back. He'll be on the opening day lineup tomorrow unless I don't know, gets hit by a bus or something. I shouldn't say that. But yeah, no, super good for Nimmo to be okay. And it definitely brings concern that a lot of people are wanting Nimmo to steal more, and that's the argument you could make for him being a leadoff guy is that he gets on base at an elite level. I mean, Nimmo always gets on a walk, a hit by pitch, a hit. He's an on base percentage merchant. But he gets on and he doesn't steal. He has the speed. He's in the 90 something percentile in sprint speed. He has the speed. He just doesn't use it. And why is that? Well, I think that's probably a great example right there is just the injury risk. So, listen, I'm not going to say is Marte my leadoff guy, but, you definitely want to keep Nimmo. You definitely want to keep him intact. So, yeah, we're going to have to see how that goes within the future.
Are you not afraid at all at the point that he might have came back a little too early?
Yeah, people can make the argument. Listen, I'd rather him be out for a week in April and than miss the last 2 months. But you know what? You're tough through it. This dude played all of last year and hurt himself a ton. It was a contract year, so let him have that same mentality still if he wants to be on this winning culture and fit in. So, I'm not too worried. I think he'll be fine.
Well, my only fear is that the dude hurt his knee and his ankle on the same slide. And yes, I know they both weren't major, but you have to let both of those things completely heal before you even step back on the diamond again. And if it is healed and we hear nothing of it, then I'll take the idiot take like I am. It's just I hope it's not a little precautionary. I feel like for a knee sprain and an ankle sprain to heal takes more than 10 days. And I'll be interested to see how he does at the beginning. Maybe he goes 75%, through these first couple of series before things really get interesting. But he's a guy to look out for, that's for sure. Because he's him, Jeff, and Pete. I guess what you could debatably say are the heart and soul of the Mets locker room, right?
Yeah,
At least being
Lindor.
that they're your guy, were from the previous regime, and they all have their bag. Well, Pete's going to here in the next year, more than likely. But I'm a little afraid for you guys in that regard because Nimmo's a great player and he's a huge part of what you guys did last year. But, you know, I hate to say this. It seems like sometimes, I don't know. I mean, it's the Cohen era. I'm sure there's a completely different training staff and everything. They gutted a lot of stuff. But in the Wilpon era, a lot of your guys' trainers would always undervalue injuries. And I hope that it's not the same case this time. I
I don't
mean,
think it is.
to bring up the DeGrom card, I know there was multiple times where he was supposed to be out 2 weeks and it turned out to be 4 months, and I'm sure you guys got very
Well,
tired.
that dude just couldn't stay on the field. Yeah.
That type of news. So I hope that they really did truly understand that. Yes, he did kind of f up his knee. Yes, he did kind of half f up his ankle, but they're healed and he'll be ready by opening day. Because I was very shocked based on how he
Yeah.
came off the field that he's back in 10 days. I mean, I don't know. They probably shot him up with some cortisone, and that definitely helped. But yeah, we'll have to see. Comment here says, speaking of the Mets, you think they'd missed an opportunity for Cy Young versus Cy Young in opening day, Sandy versus Justin instead of Max versus Sandy? Pick your poison. Who do you want to face? As the Marlins are thinking. A little bit of injury news as well. Trenton McKenzie of the Guardians is actually going to miss good chunk of change this year. Might be 2 months and change. I'm trying to get the exact detail on Twitter, but I cannot find the greatest report on. Um, Do you think this is going to be a huge hit for the Cleveland rotation, knowing that there's so much of a young pitchers there? You think they'll be able to persevere with a prospect or two, or a bunch of bullpen usage to make sure that back healthy?
Yeah, I mean, losing McKenzie was a pretty unfortunate loss. I mean, this is a team that really relied on their pitching last year. I mean, offensively, they had some great guys, but a lot of close games with the Guardians last year. And I think losing a guy like Tristan McKenzie, a guy who put up a phenomenal season last year, really broke out, showed the type of pitcher he was going to be. And now the fact is that they're saying he may miss 8 weeks. That sucks. That really does, because we know how close that division is. And those 8 weeks, those 8 weeks are going to be vital. I mean,
And
last year,
it's
he, pitched
especially
nearly
since we
almost
picked them to
200
win the
innings.
division.
Yeah, last year he pitched nearly 200 innings for them. I mean, that's just a lot. And 190 strikeouts, 0.9 WHIP, 2.96. Started 31 games, so he's a reliable guy out there. And now you're gonna have to figure out some other guy to go out there and pitch those 30 to 31 other games. So, it's unfortunate. It's a tough loss. However, the Guardians have other pitchers that could step up and go out there and do their job. I mean, you still have Shane Bieber. Who else? Obviously, James Karinchak is developing. Zach Plesac, Aaron Savali, Emmanuel Clase. He'll definitely need to step up in the bullpen role. Eli Morgan could be an interesting guy to see if they can kind of develop him a little bit more. He's a young arm who I actually have taken an interest in a little bit. So, yeah.
Gavin
He'll be an interesting
Williams,
case. Yeah.
he looks really good. So I mean, Cleveland's always been a team that has to persevere through a lot of things, but it's a little bit extra this year for the Central Divisions, being you have the balanced schedule. They're going to have to rely on not seeing each other enough to get to that 95 win total. So a loss like this could be brutal if the Twins are healthy like they say they are and the White Sox bounce back like they think they have. So it'll be interesting to see. Maybe it sets up a better race down the finish, but all I know is I wish him well. And the last injury news topic, I would go deep on it, but I don't really think there's that need to, especially because we've ragged on the Phillies enough this episode with the Rhys Hoskins ACL injury. So I wish him the best in his recovery, and I hope that he finds himself back on the baseball diamond ASAP. But I feel like that's enough negative news. Let's talk about another thing that we called before we get into another camp battle. We'll go back to Dodgers Town, and that's, you and I called this on one of the Labor podcast episodes a couple months ago, is that Trevor Bauer found himself a home in Japan. Do you think he should have done this a year ago, like we had originally said? Because when he came out and spoke about how he always wanted to play there, I made it the picture a lot clearer to me, but I'm like, if he knew he wasn't going to play in the majors last year, like why not go take a flyer 1-year deal over there? Maybe it was since he was under contract by the Dodgers, was he not allowed to? I'm maybe that's a thing we're missing, but I'm not surprised he did it, but I am surprised he didn't do it earlier if he was available to do so.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that Bauer said he wants to go is just completely BS. I don't think any pitcher would want to go to Japan in that scenario. Well, maybe in that scenario, yeah, it's the only option you have. It's a tough decision. Bauer should have done it last year. I think he should have known. Yeah, it wasn't official. Maybe he needed to stay local in the U.S. for legal reasons, and no one really knew the full situation last year. Because it was a still developing story. So you don't want to be in Japan and then come back. But I think it probably would have been the best scenario where he went to Japan last year, and then maybe he could have been back with an MLB team this year. Like we said, he didn't pitch in over a year. He needs to get back to his abilities, to what he could be. And yeah, I mean, maybe that could have been the case where pitched there last year and maybe team could have signed him on this 2-3 year deal. But instead, now he's going to have to go to Japan. He hasn't pitched in a year. He's going to have to try and, get his pitches back, get his repertoire, and kind of just figure out how to grind, all of his things again. So it's going to be an interesting turn of events for Bauer. I mean, personally, I kind of think he's done. I mean, the fact that no really team even wanted to go after him, even like the Rockies or, the A's or, the crap teams didn't really have an interest in him. That really makes me question, regardless of talent, is he a good clubhouse guy? Is he a good person? I mean, morally, listen, that's a completely different scenario and a topic for another day. But I'll tell you, if the Mets expressed interest in him, which they never would, I would be very upset. I don't think he's a good clubhouse guy. I think he's a bad guy on the field, especially in New York. You can't have that presence in New York. Yankees are a classy organization. They don't want that. Cardinals wouldn't want that. Mets wouldn't want that. Like I said, if Bauer were to go back to an MLB team, it would have been a team like the Royals or maybe the Reds. He could have went back there. A small 1-2 year deal, cheap deal. But right now,
Angels
I
could have
think
called him. He's local.
he is. But now I just think it comes to let Bauer go to Japan and let the past be the past and just focus on the future, I guess, is really all you could say.
The one thing I will give him credit for, regarding that he always wanted to go to Japan, is it seems like for a couple of years his social media captions and even some of the stuff on YouTube, he always has the transcript in Japanese. So he's been doing that for a couple of years, even back when he was a Cincinnati Red. So I do really think, he grew up in an area. I think he went to school with some a heavy Asian area. So I do think that he definitely always wanted to play there, but maybe that he's BSing a little bit, knowing that it was his only option. But I do believe he's a guy that loves the spotlight, and you see guys at the end of their MLB careers and know that they have a little bit more left in the tank to provide at other places like Japan. And not to say that the Japanese league is bad. They just beat us in WBC for the third time in 6 tournament runs. They have 2 more than anybody else does. It's going to take a decade for anybody to catch them if they do. Japan's baseball league is almost on par with the major leagues. It's crazy. There's no denying the talent they have. But when you get guys like Adam Jones, I almost said and Jones went over there as well. But guys of that stature, Preston Tucker, Kyle Tucker's older brother, to like the Japanese league and the KBO over in Korea, be like the best player in their sport for a couple of years is something that I think Bauer definitely was never going to be opposed to. And I'll be interested to see how he does over there, how they react to him, how he grows to their people. Because, as you said, some of the culture that wouldn't fly in New York is definitely not going to fly in Japan. But I do think there's other things that he does that might be a little bit more acceptable to the samurai people than it is over here in the States. So we'll have to see how it goes. I mean, ultimately, I do wish him the best. I think for the most part, most of that major, law stuff has been cleared out of his name, and hopefully he continues to stay out of trouble. That's I can really say on that note. One more camp topic to debate here before we talk about some of our best opening day matchups that we're looking at tomorrow. Maybe dive deep on 2 or 3 minutes on each game is the Jason Howard James Outman battle for camp. Of course, the Dodgers. After the Cubs DFA'd Hayward going into the last year of his deal, maybe the Braves will do that with Ozuna next year. The Dodgers, of course, took a swing at Ozuna to see how things would work, and him and prospect James Outman. You know me, I'm Outman Kool-Aid this year. They're both making the major league roster to start the year, so that is great news for Dodgers country. Hayward did not have a bad spring for what it was worth. Showed a couple flashes in the glove. Of course, the Dodgers were able to tweak his swing after all the mediocre years he had with the Cubs, and he looks like he's a guy that could be primed to have a surprise return year. Not that he's going to be all-star caliber, but a guy that's a positive WAR player for the Dodgers, who are looking to still be a competitive club, even though they reset their luxury tax threshold this offseason. You can't deny that over 162 games, this is going to be one of the best clubs in the majors. How long of a leash do you think Jason Hayward will have before they throw guys like him and Trace Thompson to the side to say, Outman, you're up? Or do you think the Dodgers will take a slow platoon it, the old-fashioned way if everything goes to plan?
Yeah, Jason Hayward's a contract or just a player that has really fallen under it. I mean, arguably had a really bad contract, with the Chicago Cubs. And, I remember being in Chicago last year, and even the fans just hated him there. They wanted him out. But that's besides the point. I think he is going to be on a really short leash, unless there's some miracle that the Dodgers could look at this 33-year-old and just fix him, which there's a possibility they could fix him. Like work with the hitting coaches and just get him back to what he used to be. Spring training wasn't really that great. Hit way below average, got on base below average. He had 2 home runs and 10 hits and 50 at bats, so it's really nothing too great. Last year, his season was pretty bad too with the Cubs. Small sample size, but just unwatchable. He didn't really, defensively, offensively, nothing was justifiable. And I think the Dodgers, knowing their fate, knowing how many unquestionable guys that they're going to have, Hayward and Thompson, they're going to be on a short leash. Some guy like James Outman or Billy James or John, whoever, are in AAA and they're raking. You betcha that the Dodgers are going to be DFAing Hayward or whoever, and they're going to be calling up those guys from AAA. Considering Padres are arguably a little bit of a better lineup than the Dodgers. The Dodgers want to win that division. Well, you're gonna need a lot from your AAA and prospects this year. You're going to need a lot. The Dodgers, last year at this time, I'm saying, oh my God, the Dodgers are one of the best teams in baseball. I don't think they are anymore. Lineup wise, I question if they're a top 5 lineup at this rate. I think they have a couple, Freeman and Betts, of course, but Miguel Rojas, are you kidding me? So yeah, I really do think that the Dodgers are going to put them on a short leash.
They claimed over having this top farm system for the last couple of years. They haven't had a chance to use it. We'll see if they finally do, and if it works out. Who knows? It could. Over 162 games. I will disagree on that part. That I do think the Dodgers will still be good. I don't know if they'll be title contender. Hell, they haven't won a world title since 19. So I don't think you can really claim them to be a World Series threat at that point anyway. But I guess the point I will agree with you on is the lineup, as you said. Like, there's Max Muncy, Miguel Rojas, and Trace Thompson in the year 2023 for a team that wants to win the World Series. Yeah, it's going to need a little bit of work. Having Gav go down and having James Outman start on the bench is definitely not going to help them. Maybe they find another bat at the trade deadline. Maybe a prospect dangles his special magic around, Chavez, and all of a sudden they look a lot better, and I would not be surprised. But as of right now, as you said, it's going to a little bit more than what they working for them. And there'll be a storyline to blow the Padres out of the water again, or even if they are a first-place ball club. I think you'd them to win the National League West. Diego. So that will be a storyline to watch for ourselves throughout the season. Near the 9 o'clock hour here on the Long Ball podcast, which means we are, 15 hours. First game is at 1 o'clock Eastern tomorrow, so do the math. Yeah, 15 hours from now. First pitch between the Yankees and the Giants and the Atlanta Braves and the Washington Nationals at 1:05 p.m. We'll dive into a couple points about him tomorrow if you want, Hayden, and we'll call it a wrap and have our first regular season show for you guys on Saturday afternoon. Hayden and I will probably have to wing that first episode before we get a full format down, but we hope that you guys are completely ready like we are. Chat's been popping tonight, so it's been fun. So let's get into games. Regular season baseball talk right now, right here. You got Patrick Corbin versus Max Fried tomorrow from the nation's capital. What are you looking forward? What's one thing you had to look forward to in that matchup?
There's really not much to say with Patrick Corbin. He's pretty crap. I'm just gonna be blunt about it. There's really not much to say about Patrick Corbin. He's not the pitcher he used to be in 2019. He's been horrible since. So, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the Braves. I could see it 2 ways. I could see him going 6 innings and holding the Braves to a run. And then I could also see him getting taken out in the 3rd inning after Olsen, and just the whole lineup goes deep on him. Olsen, Acuna, Albies, either or. Obviously, like I said, Patrick Corbin, he's not what he used to be anymore. Nationals are going to be in for a really rough and long year. And then obviously you're going to have the battle of the lefties. Max Fried also is going to be on the bump as well tomorrow. So it'll be nice to see the battle of the lefties. Obviously, Max Fried has a lot to prove this upcoming year. So yeah, that's the 1 o'clock game. That's the 1:05 game. Pardon me. So those are the one of two first games of the season. I mean, my money's on the Braves, so I think that'll be a good game.
To answer Murray's question, hi. First of all, welcome. Hope you enjoyed the show. We do this all the time. And if you want some off-season recap shows before the games tomorrow, we have them all listed on the channel. So we thank you for listening. What opening day y'all are going to? Well, Hayden is in university right now, and so am I. But my team is also out of town, so we will not be going to either game for opening day. But we will definitely be going to a check games over the summer. That's for sure. Do thank you for listening, though, and we hope you do enjoy what you're hearing. Gio stepping in says he's hyped.
Gio.
So I think we're same boat. And I guess I'll let you answer the question. He's asking if you're going to the game in South Beach tomorrow.
Yeah, nah, Gio. So unfortunately, if I was home, I live near West Palm Beach, which is about an hour north of Miami. But I'm at school right now. I go to Stetson, which is near Daytona. Essentially, I call it the DeGrom School, as everybody calls it, or the Gilbert or Kluber School, whatever you want to call it. So it's just getting down there is kind of the issue. I have two classes tomorrow. I have an 8:30 to 9:45, and then a 1 to 2:15. I'd have no problem skipping them. That's not why I'm not going. It's just getting down there. And, originally I was going to go with some people and we were going to drive down there and then crash at my place and then maybe go to two other games there. But it was just kind of too hard to plan. And I don't really want to do it all last minute. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to go. And sadly, the next time the Mets come down to Miami is in August, and that's when I'll be starting school again. So, I don't know if I'll see any of the Mets at all this year. I'll definitely see plenty of, other baseball teams playing. I'm doing a little trip with one of my buddies, Toronto, and the two teams in Chicago and Detroit, Blue Jays, Cubs, White Sox, and Tigers. But I don't know if I'll be seeing the Mets this year. So it is how it is. Yeah, we'll see what the summer season brings in store.
So the other 105 game, as you kind of aforementioned, is Logan Webb versus Garrett Cole. Do you think Garrett Cole is going to be ready this year for the national anthem and not have to wait 5 minutes, or do you think it'll be another angry opening day like he had last season versus Boston, where his adrenaline got too high and had to cool it down after the first inning? If you remember that storyline.
I don't, but I feel like I do. Yeah, I do remember that now. So yeah, obviously last year you have obviously for tomorrow's game of the Giants and Yankees, Logan Webb versus Garrett Cole. Yeah, as of right now, I mean, I think this is the Yankees ball game. Kind of ironic that the Giants were going after Arson Judge and Carlos Correa, and would have been crazy if Judge went to the Giants first game there. But no, Judge is back with the Yankees, so that's good for them, of course, if you're a Yankee fan, of course. Yeah, Garrett Cole's going to be in for an interesting year. Like I said, he's the pitcher who I don't think he's the best pitcher in New York, and I don't think he's the best pitcher in baseball, but I think he's a pretty elite level pitcher, and I think he's in that caliber of being a great tier pitcher. Yeah, I mean, like I said, when it comes to opening day, it's kind of hard to do analysis because, right now it's judging it off of last year, and guys have slumps, guys have better years. So just kind of taking it off from last year. Logan Webb had a great season last year. Okay spring training, 18 innings, which is pretty impressive to see. But pitched really well last year, almost just shy of 200 innings, 32 games. So he's reliable, he's durable. You put him out there, 290 average, 1.1 WHIP, 193 strikeouts. Just going over some of the basic casual stats. So yeah, he's a great pitcher. But I got to give the end to the Yankees. I think they have the better lineup, the better pitching, and the better team all around. So I have the Yankees taking it But it'll be, nice to see some new additions for the Giants.
Before I read your comment, Murray, which first of all, there's another Bengal. We got two Bengals fans in the chat at the same time, so that's cool. Houday Country is repping Longball tonight. You said Garrett Cole is not the best pitcher in New York. I gotta know, who is it? Don't say who I think it is.
I'd probably say Scherzer or Verlander. I don't.
Well, Verlander's yet to pitch for New York. So
yeah, but going off of the track record though, the rest of the Yankees rotation, it's not like, Nestor Cortez is
not like what we thought it'd be.
Is filthy. But it's not like I'm cashing my money in a guy like Carlos Rodon or Domingo Herman. I'm not really cashing my money on them. So
Sevy's never really got fully healthy either. But that is also, not Derek. That is not Garrett. I don't know why I almost said Derek Carr, but that is not Garrett Cole. But I have to ask though, since he's not the best pitcher in New York, who pitched in the ALCS last year? Well, I guess Verlander also did. If that's your answer, then yes, that's valid. But I don't know. It's a debate that's really, it's just like LeBron versus Michael. Like, is there really a correct answer? So I don't know. I just had to hear your thought process on that, and I do genuinely understand your point of view. Murray says, I'm from Cincinnati, and as bad as I hate the owner, Cincinnati opening day is a memorable event, and oh no, that sucks. Hey, school is everything today, and y'all take care of you. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, for your Reds, I'm sure you grew up a big Reds fan. At least you still got Joey Votto. At least Jonathan India. We talked about him on our National League Central preview and NL offseason recap. Each we deep dove into Cincinnati. And yeah, just sell the team Bob, honestly. It's Joe Burrow's town now. It's no longer the big red machine of the past, but hey, hopefully y'all are at least enjoyable to watch throughout some capacity throughout the summer. And if that is, Joe Burrow will be back on the sidelines before y'all know it. And I'm sure RJ loves that. Oh yeah, RJ, who of course is a Texas Ranger fan, and the chat says it was DeGrom, but we will happily take him. We'll get into his game here in just a minute. The 2:00 Eastern hour, and I'll include the 3:00 Eastern hour game altogether. You got Orioles at Red Sox. Opening day rematch of last year in Wrigley, the Brewers and the Cubs, and of course the Tigers and the Rays at 3:05. I wouldn't be surprised if that is also referred to as the Isaac Paredes Austin Meadows Bowl, but we'll have to see how that goes. Looking at the pitching matchup here, it's lagging a little behind. That's why I couldn't tell you off the rip, Hayden. If for Baltimore and Boston is Corey Kluber. What? Are we just not running this here on opening day? What in the world? What's your initial reaction to that? Kyle Gibson and Corey Kluber, is that the best those clubs have to offer?
Yeah, I read something about why they did that, but to be kind of honest, I kind of forgot why. Yeah, I mean, a nice in-division matchup. I mean, it'll probably be nice to see the Orioles not finish last in that division this year. Orioles definitely a team that definitely to keep an eye on. Got a lot of young guys in there. Gunnar Henderson, possible Rookie of the Year. Obviously, Adley Rutschman. A couple other guys like Cedric Mullins, Austin Hayes, Ryan Mountcastle. So a lot of pre-arbitration guys in that mix is good. So yeah, I think the Orioles are going to have a good year. Boston, obviously Corey Kluber will be starting for them. Have some pretty mid pitching, so they can come into surprise to an extent. So I probably got my money on Baltimore that game, the Orioles.
Looking at a nice marquee matchup here for opening day, probably on Marquee Sports Network, ironically. A rematch of opening day last year, Marcus Stroman and Corbin Burns. That should be exciting. That's a toss-up head-to-head matchup that we'll have to be watching all year. Of course, you and I said they're about the same level. Are they going to be able to catch the Cardinals? Probably not. But two teams that are fighting to see where their window is going to be at the end of 2023. And what better place to start than versus one another on opening day? I'm sure there'll be some Milwaukee people that make the trek down to Wrigley, and I'm sure it'll be the opposite for the Cubs fans up in Brewerville this summer. Always a fun little rivalry, to be completely honest. Yeah, Marcus Stroman versus Corbin Burns. I don't think you want anything other than that on opening for two teams that were outside the playoff picture last year to throw out their guy to show that this is the bounce back season. Do you have any words of wisdom on that game, or are you free to keep moving?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, kind of repeat of last year's opening day. I think I got my money on the Cubs, just home field advantage. I don't know. Yeah.
For the 3:05 Eastern game down in the Trop, you got Eduardo Rodriguez, Erod, as for also, formerly referred to as, and I hope that he has a great bounce back season for Detroit. They're going to need it if they want to go anywhere this year. And the man, the myth, the legend, Shane McClanahan, getting the start. That should be a fun one to see where the Rays lineup stacks up against a guy who just a couple of years ago was looked at as a number 2 in the rotation, definitely an ace for its team like Detroit and company. But I'll be interested to see where he goes. Uh, uh, where's your direction on what that game?
Yeah, Eduardo Rodriguez, kind of unfortunate that he used to be a opening day starter. I mean, I guess Mize is out, and Tariq Skubal's going to be out for a little bit, so probably want to go with someone a little bit more experience, a little bit more of a veteran presence on the mound for opening day. Battle the southpaw. I'll probably go the Rays taking that.
I would not disagree with you there. I might be lagging a little bit. If so, I think the MLB app is slowing me down a little bit tonight. So you let me know if I am, Hayden. Um, this is a matchup we don't really have to talk about too depth. It's Mitch Keller versus Hunter Green, two teams that are going to be fighting for last place in the National League Central. I am drinking the Hunter Green Kool-Aid going into this season. Are you as well, or what? I guess since he might be the one of the bright spots for Murray's Reds, what's your take on Hunter Green getting that opening day nod?
Yeah, you know, I think Hunter Green has some talent. I definitely think he's capable to be a breakout pitcher this year. I think he has the velocity. He has the movement on his pitches. I mean, I think he has overall just the arsenal to be a successful pitcher. Nick Lodolo also in that rotation, I think, could be a nice arm. So yeah, there's really not much to say about that game. I think the Reds are favored to win it, so I'm going to go with the Reds. It's kind of an irrelevant game.
Vegas. Um, 4:10 game with Colorado and San Diego. That should be a massacre for Slam Diego. Murray does say though, hopefully we can make it a dual threat town eventually. I remember watching the Reds at Riverfront. Just want to see them do well. Proud of the Bengals, but you're right. Big Red Machine has to catch up. Seems like that is the case. For a long time, it was a Reds town. Until the last couple of years when Castellini sell off a lot of pieces, but at the same time, the Bengals, made their deepest playoff run in 25 years. So a change in arms, that's for sure, and we'll see if the Reds can rebound and make it a dual threat, which hopefully for your guys' case they do. Yeah, the San Diego game I'm sure is more of a blowout. This is an interesting one for me at 4:10. The Blue Jays and the Cardinals, two teams that were on the outside looking in from wild card series last year, two teams that are looking to win their divisions this year. That might be one I do watch after the Braves game wraps up at 1:10. Let me see what the matchup is for us here. I would guess it's Alek Manoah and Adam Wainwright. If I had to, it's actually going to be Miles Michaelis and Alek Manoah. In St. Louis, Battle of the Birds. Birds? That should be a fun game to tune into, Hayden. I think that might be the best game of the bunch so far than the Giants Yankees. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, initially, supposed to be Wainwright as the opening day starter. He got hurt, so it's Miles Michaelis coming off of that big contract extension just last week. So maybe that'll give him some motivation against Alek Manoah, who had a great season last year. I think he's definitely intact for another great season. That's a really close game. Honestly, this is kind of like the first one where I'm like, I think it's like a 60-40 or 50 or 51-49. But I think I'm gonna go the Toronto Blue Jays. I think I think I gotta go Blue Jays taking it.
You also
How
got
about you?
damn, I just lost. Um, Opening day in St. Louis. I don't think the Cardinals lose that matchup. I gotta go with St. Louis just because of that fact. Minnesota versus Kansas City should be an interesting one. We saw the sneaky Royals last year. We learned a lot about them in that live stream we did. I'll be interested to see if we get a chance to do more of their games this summer if they end up on any primetime slots. I'm guessing it's Pablo Lopez. I don't want to open up all the windows for the games because they're clearly slowing down my internet connection. But do you think that could be a game that you see an opening day upset if Pablo Lopez isn't quite set and ready for the American League day one? Muted.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Zach Greinke obviously coming into could be one of his last opening days as a starter, or last opening days as a whole. Going against Pablo Lopez, new Minnesota Twin. Yeah, I could see possible for a Minnesota upset. I think anything's possible. I think maybe Pasquantino or Melendez or Bobby Witt Jr. Can do some damage against Lopez. I think anything's possible. But I think in terms of it, I got to go the Twins taking it tomorrow.
That should be an interesting one indeed. The last game from the 4 o'clock hour has the National League champions and DeGrom's new home, Aaron Nola versus Jacob DeGrom on opening day. I know RJ definitely is excited for this one. A fun stat for you, Hayden. The Rangers last year went 4-0 against the Philadelphia Phillies. Does the trend continue with an opening day DeGrom W tomorrow? Do the Phillies come into town and spoil the party from day one?
Yeah, that's if he could pitch the whole game, or we don't hear any tweets after the game. Breaking: Jacob DeGrom has a sore labrum, or whatever. Hopefully that man could stay healthy. I think if you're a Rangers fan, that's I wouldn't be surprised if some bullshit like that happens. He needs to be healthy. I mean, that's literally point blank simple. This dude needs to stay healthy. As of right now, obviously you have Jacob DeGrom versus Austin Nola. So that'll be an
Aaron
interesting opening. Oh, I said Austin. Yeah, well, not the Padres catcher.
Yeah, you good.
Aaron Nola versus Jacob DeGrom, a matchup that has been seen before. Obviously, a National League East reunion, so that'll be a cool matchup to see. Rangers offensively are going to be interesting, but I think DeGrom and just his success over the Phillies is going to carry over. So I think I got the Rangers winning this one. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be like a 2-1 ball game, but I got DeGrom taking it.
RJ, I know loves to hear that.
He's not going to get the win, though. He's not going to get the win. The bullpen's going to get the win.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, Adolis Garcia 2-run home run, bottom of the eighth, and a save from Jose Leclerc. There's your official prediction. Hayden knows ball on God. Good MFN choice. RJ definitely improves. I know he was
subscribe to my YouTube channel. Subscribe.
Facts. Earlier this week, we had the chance to talk about the Rangers and the Angels, of course, being in the battle for that third place American League West. I put the Rangers in third. You put the Angels in third instead. Would you mind saying, RJ, your breakdown on why you went with the Halos over the Rangers in thirds, just so he has your complete and utter thought process. He says ball, so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main part of going over with the Angels first, I just think is the talent offensively. Obviously you have Trout, you have Ohtani, and that's kind of been, for the main part, the Angels, duo. However, this offseason, they went out and they made some moves offensively. You signed Brandon Drury. You signed Hunter Renfroe. You brought in Gio Urshela. So, that Angels lineup of, Trout, Ohtani, Taylor Ward, a guy who had a great season last year that a lot of people are underrating. Mixed with Hunter Renfroe, Gio Urshela, David Fletcher, Brandon Drury. Can Anthony Rendon do some stuff? Maybe he can get back into somewhat being relevant again. I think pitching-wise, I think the Rangers have much better pitching than the Angels, no doubt. But I like the Angels lineup a lot more. I mean, you look at that Texas Rangers lineup. Yeah, I think Simeon and Seager are going to have much better seasons. I don't think they're going to have mid seasons like they did last year. Keep in mind, Simeon did break out a lot in the second half. I mean, his power went up, hitting for the long ball, extra base hits. So he definitely helped boost his stats. It's just he had a really bad
Corey
first
will
half.
all-star too. Had to
Yeah,
bring up
Corey
the all-star game
Seager.
as
I
well.
mean, yeah, Corey Seager,
It's
but
just they both had rough starts.
I like Nathaniel Lau. I think he's a secret under the radar player, and I think this is going to be the year where
Love
he
him
just
too.
breaks out and everyone's like Nate Lau, yeah. You got Seager,
He
you
broke out
got
last year, to be
Simeon,
honest.
you got Adolis Garcia, you got Brad Miller, which I think was a nice utility type role. Put him anywhere, he'll play. Josh Jung, nice young prospect. I think he could do a lot. You got Jonah Heim, one of the best defensive catchers in the league. Pitching wise, I think they have a much better pitching squad. I think they're stacked when it comes to their pitching depth. Offensively, I'm not digging the lineup a whole lot. I think if it's a game between the Texas Rangers and Angels, I think it kind of evens out because it's one team with great pitching and another team with a decent lineup. But yeah, I just think the Angels have a little bit more offensively. And, like I said, with DeGrom, I mean, I'm telling you, I really would, I think it's going to go two ways. I think DeGrom is going to simply enough go out, and I could see him pitching and making 30 starts and winning the AL Cy Young or being in the top three. I could see that happening. Or I could see him pitching great in the months of April and May. And then, mid-April, DeGrom's going to be shut down for 3 weeks. And then shut down for another 3 weeks. Oh, sorry, he's going to be suspended for the rest of the season to, fix his medical needs or whatever the shenanigans they pulled last year. It's with DeGrom. I'm not committed on DeGrom until I see it. The last time DeGrom pitched every fifth day was in 2019. Last I checked, the world in baseball has changed a lot since then. I mean, you look at the Mets team in 2019. Alonso was still a rookie. McNeil was in his second year. I mean, Nimmo was bad defensively then. I mean, lots changed since 2019. So I don't trust DeGrom's health. And I agree with that, but I think it's not even point to the doctors anymore. I just think the dude gets hurt with everything. I just, and yes, I don't disagree. I think the Mets threw him out there at certain times, but it also came to the point where DeGrom would throw him out there at certain times. And, what really frustrated me with DeGrom last year is how he would he came back in the second half and he would just take himself out of games. And, you see guys like Garrett Cole and whoever, and they're, throwing 120 pitches in a game. And, he's hurting, but you don't hear him complaining. And you see him grinding on the mound. We see DeGrom taking himself out of games. I'm sorry, but you don't hear an ace. You do that. DeGrom, listen, we spoke about DeGrom leaving, and honestly, I really didn't care. And I mean, you could ask anybody. You could, go back to my streams. I said, okay. Literally, I remember I was with my friend, and he's like, DeGrom to Texas. And I'm like, oh, nice. How long? I just think it came to the point where as a Mets fan, I'm used to him not pitching. And someone asked me earlier today, Hayden,
I will say this, though.
Hold on. And then someone asked me today, Hayden, do you think that the DeGrom absence is going to make an impact? Well, I mean, how did the Mets do in the first half last year? Amazing. Who wasn't out there? DeGrom. Last I checked, McGill and Peterson have been taking over DeGrom's role, and they were doing great. I think DeGrom is a great pitcher, but just as a whole, I mean, also with the pitching, I don't like Odorizzi. I think he's pretty mid and pretty overrated.
Yes,
I think you got to work that out there.
SHIT. He's
a
bit.
He's in that mix too. Martin Perez, he had a good year last year. Can he carry it over? If he can, that'll be good. John Gray, also another guy who came over from Colorado and had a good year last year. If he can carry that over, great. Hey, he's not going to start, but he's going to be in the bullpen. He's going to be pitching. So yeah, I
So
don't know. I mean, that's kind of why I know I kind of went a little bit on a tangent about DeGrom and
no, you're
some
good. That's
unnecessary
great.
things. But just as of right now, I think the Angels are gonna just I think they just could do more offensively. I think the Rangers definitely can. And I don't get me wrong, I'd like to see them finish in third place. I'd like them to win in second. But it's just that division's so tough with Houston and the Mariners, and they're going to be playing a lot of NL teams who are definitely more proven with talent. So it's going to be an interesting year for Texas, and the Angels and all 28 other MLB organizations.
I do think the Angels, as you said, they're the team that's most known for on a night-to-night basis. They're able to beat anybody, but over 162 games, it's just harder to trust them with how they ran things and how injury-prone that team always seems to be. But yeah, like I guess the point to mention is Nate Lowe broke out last year, and I wonder. I'm hoping he's able to keep up doing the same because if he does, he's going to be in the conversation as a top 5 first baseman. Seager and Simeon, yeah, they both had rough starts. Seager's completely new league. Simeon had the worser of the start, but I think overall their numbers finished pretty good for where it's at. It's just by that time, I think a lot of the national media had tuned out of the Rangers games, and if they were talking about Dallas sports, it was Luka and it was the Cowboys, and that was about the extent of what they got. But we'll have to see what else is out there for them. The one thing I will call you out on is you and I spoke a lot during our regular season shows last year. I asked you about what you thought about DeGrom and if he and where you thought he'd be, and I remember you told me I don't know, I don't remember your exact word for word. It might have been a topic we had a conversation we had off the air, but I remember you do saying I quote, I think he's going to pitch for the Mets in mid 40s. He came up as a late 20-year-old. He didn't really start throwing until he was in college, so he has a lot of less innings on his arm.
Yeah,
So I do want to know where the thought process changed
I do still think he's capable of pitching until his 40s.
for the Mets, though.
DeGrom went.
I just thought about,
DeGrom.
but
Well, no, just and any baseball organization wasn't pertaining to the Mets. Just I think he's capable of pitching as a baseball player until his early 40s, possibly mid 40s. DeGrom was in college, Stetson here, and he didn't start pitching until his junior year. So it's just obviously when you're young, you make silly mechanical errors, and he obviously has less innings on his arm. So that's why his velocity is going up, and that's why he's getting better with age. He also has less innings on his arm because he hasn't pitched much in the last 4 years. So that's also another reason why he may go into his 40s and stuff. Obviously, when he's in his 40s, he's not going to be throwing 100. He's not going to be throwing 98. He's not going to be having 7-pitch arsenal.
would you rather have 42-year-old Adam Wainwright or DeGrom?
In terms of consistency or performance?
Either or.
Consistency, I'm going with Wainwright. Consistency, I'm going with Wainwright because at least I know he can go out there. DeGrom, I mean, I'm literally going to be, if I'm a Texas fan tomorrow, I'm shitting my pants, and I'm on Twitter every 10 seconds after DeGrom's getting out of the game saying, is he okay? Because that's just what I'm so used to. And listen, I don't care what about what team's doctors it is. It's dude's body. It doesn't change where he is. If I pull up DeGrom's injuries and you look at everything from his labrum to his forearm to everything. I mean, I just Google you could literally, what's that little child game with the injured hospital patient and you have to pull things out of him, whatever that game is. That's literally DeGrom. I mean, I'm literally looking at his injuries: shoulder, forearm, shoulder, labrum, elbow, right side, hamstring, neck, back tightness, hip, hyperextended right elbow, labrum again, hamstring. That's all from the most old date on that is June 1st, 2019. Are you kidding me? Bad Mexican food plus DeGrom.
Oh my god. RJ is a comedian.
I'm sorry, but and I'm not trying to, crap on the dude. I don't trust him.
I'm sure ultimately you are rooting for him, right? Like
of course. Yeah, I want him to do well, but it's hard. But with that said, yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting year for them. I mean, backtracking to opening day, it's going to be a good game tomorrow. Mets play the Marlins. Scherzer versus Alcantara. So I think that'll be an interesting matchup. Um, Obviously, Max Scherzer's taking the opening day start, so Verlander, Justin Verlander can get the opening day start for the first home game. So that'll be good to see. Obviously, it'll be a 4-game series in Miami. No off days, so they play, tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a good game tomorrow. Honestly, I do have the Mets winning it. Um, I don't really think the Marlins lineup is going to be anything great this year. Yeah, Josh Chisholm, Luis Arias, but I don't really like much
Wasn't great
around
last
it.
year.
And it's not like really anyone has any great, outstanding numbers against Scherzer. I mean, Segura has some decent numbers against Scherzer, but it's not like anyone else has a decent sample size or decent numbers against Scherzer, where at least there's a couple hitters on the Mets who have hit really well against the Marlins. I mean, McNeil owned the Marlins last year. Lindor put up great numbers against Alcantara last year, and in 2-year career that he's played against him with the Mets organization. Alonso has some power numbers against the Marlins. Marte, Guillorme. So yeah, I think it'll be a close game at first, and then I think there'll be like one inning where the Mets just get like 3 off of Alcantara, and then it kind of just like shuts down, and the bullpen comes and they score some insurance. So I think the Mets are going to win tomorrow by 5-2. How about you?
David Robertson opening day says your word for it. Um, the 7 o'clock game on ESPN is probably the most interesting of the late bunch. That is Dylan Cease versus the defending Houston Astros with Framber Valdez getting the opening day nod. Do you think the White Sox have what it takes to spoil the party like Cincinnati did to the Braves on the same day last year?
Yeah, Dylan Cease, definitely a Cy Young favorite player versus Framber Valdez. I'm gonna go with the Astros. I think Houston is gonna win. I like that lineup much better. And I'm looking
Hey,
at
Kyle Tucker.
the offensive lineup against Valdez, and the stats aren't that great. So I'm gonna go the Astros. Take it.
Tucker. That's all I'll say is make sure that man's got his bag. He deserves it. I agree. I mean, it's opening day. It's just like any. If the better team loses tomorrow, it doesn't mean everything. But as long as they win the series, like hell, the Braves split with the Reds at the beginning of last year, and they won 101 games. So they lost opening night like 6-2 to Cincinnati. So I don't really think that one game matters so much. If whatchamacallit, where is he? Where if Murray's still in here, then know where I'm coming from in that regard. But I guess the 10 o'clock games will wrap them all up at once. You got, of course, you already ranted on the Angels, so you need to go in depth. They're up in the Oakland Coliseum for potentially one of the last season of Oakland A's baseball, with Kyle Muller on the mound throwing to Shane Langolier. So Braves West in that regard. You got 10-10 Eastern with the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers. I'm going to click on that pitching matchup real quick. And, of course, you also got the Guardians and the Mariners. That should be a fun opening day matchup as well. But the Dodgers pitching matchup is Zach Gallen versus Julio Urias. Ooh, could be fun. ASMR.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. What was the question?
I was asking you what your thoughts on the potential Zach Gallen Julio Urias contest. That should be a good one in Chavez Ravine.
I think the Dodgers are gonna win. Still think Zach Gallen is a Cy Young caliber pitcher. I think I could have him as my Cy Young winner this year. A little take there. But I think the Dodgers are going to take tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
I think they'll kind of like the Mets,
I'm a big Zach
get a
Gallen
nice
fan.
inning off of him and build off of it.
Just the better lineup. And lastly, I'm sure it's Shane Bieber, I would guess, versus Luis Castillo, right? In this Cleveland game. Trying to pull that up. I load some of my stuff down the night. I don't know why, but it's not usually this slow. Yeah, Shane Bieber versus Castillo. Um, two teams that were in the playoffs last year. Two teams that were in the divisional last year and could not get through versus the Giants. That is the Yankees and the Astros. But I'm sure they're both looking to rebound and to get to that next step. They got to go through each other on day one. Formerly an Ohio, swagger matchup with Luis and Shane, but now of course in opposite leagues. I think Luis Castillo for a full year is going to do wonders for the Mariners. That's indeed Hayden showing off the hat. That's pretty swaggy. I got a couple new Braves hats this offseason, so I'm liking that as well. I got a new one on today, actually. My mom got one. She was down in the spring training site last week, a conversation you and I had. Yeah, I guess the late game is Cleveland versus Seattle. Will you be tuning into either the LA game or this one if you have any time?
Yeah, I'll probably. I mean, I go to bed at like 3 o'clock anyways, so I'll. Sorry, my freaking computer's
Yeah, I feel that.
I'm trying to grab the charger. Yeah, I'll probably be up for those games. I'll be watching them. Who'd you say it was? Mariners versus Guardians. I'm gonna take the Mariners.
Yeah.
Just because they're America's team and kind of a Mariners fan for the AL a little bit. Because why not? So yeah, I'm gonna go with the Mariners taking a close game.
Well, if you're lucky, Trevor May might end his career in Seattle, being that he grew up there, and then you get to be a Trevor May fan for a second time around. So we'll see how that goes. But I think that's pretty much everything we got to cover for here on this opening night Eve podcast. I know it wasn't the best format. Hayden and I kind of threw it up last minute. Yeah, Saturday, guys, we'll be back with some actual real baseball talk. I'm sure you and I will try to watch as many games as possible this opening week from as many different teams so we get as much analysis going into that Saturday show. We'll try to see if the format, sticks, and if not, we'll have something better for you guys planned by, middle of April regarding our regular season format shows. Thank you for making it through the off season with us. We really enjoy you guys. Thank you, RJ, for joining the show tonight. Thank you, Murray, for joining the show tonight. We saw Gio in here earlier. Shout out to you. We saw Randy from the next shift in here earlier. Shout out to you. A couple Twitch comments in there I didn't really get a chance to get to, but we appreciate you coming from whatever platform you were. Gerd earlier tonight says he's going to the Braves Padres home opener in a week or two, so that sounds fun. I'll be there for that Friday night.
That's cool.
I think it's Thursday through Saturday. I'll be going Friday, but he might be going to that Thursday game. We'll have to see. RJ does not want Kyle Tucker to get paid by Houston, understandably so. So being he's a Rangers fan, I will ask you one more cliffhanging question before we end the show. I gave you that much of a hint, so I'm being very nice. When Jacob deGrom had his introductory press conference with Bruce Bochy in Arlington, he, of course, signed the 5-year deal, and he said, I'm here to, quote, win a World Series. We're going to end the show on a cliffhanger, so I want to get your official answer. Over these 5 years, will deGrom's statement come true? Will deGrom win a World Series like he planned to in Arlington over the next half decade?
Probably not.